So I have to start off this morning by asking us to take a few steps back. Starting on Easter Sunday, we start talking about these resurrection stories, these stories of Jesus appearing to people after his resurrection. But this Sunday, we take a step back. We actually talk about a story from before Jesus' resurrection. This is during the time when Jesus is in Jerusalem, taking his last trip there before his final trip to Jerusalem. He has just healed a man who was born blind. And this healing raises up all these questions of where Jesus' power and authority come from. And to answer those questions, he doesn't use a display of his power. He doesn't go out to prove his power. He starts talking about being a good shepherd. This is a resurrection story, though. The resurrection hasn't happened yet, but this is very much a story about resurrection. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But first, I want us to kind of form a mental image of a shepherd. Just put in your mind the image of a shepherd. It's a little different for us than it was for Jesus' contemporaries. In Jesus' time, I'm not going to say most people were shepherds, but most people probably knew a shepherd, knew somebody that had that career, or that calling, or that job, or that title. Maybe a lot of people walked by shepherds on a day-to-day basis. Even people living in the city, even if you weren't living out in the agrarian parts of the country, even living in the city, you had to know about shepherding just because of the central importance of sheep, not only in people's diet and clothing, but in religious practices. Sheep were important to temple worship, so people got to know what it was like to care for sheep. So get that mental image of a shepherd in your mind right now. And put in that image somebody who has to work long hours. And very boring hours for the most part. Remember the beginning of the gospel story when the shepherds are watching their flock by night. They're not out there watching TV at night. They're out there kind of just standing around waiting for the time when they will be needed. It's a job with long hours. A lot of the time, not too much is going on. You're kind of just standing there keeping watch. It's not a job that pays very well. It's a job that asks you to have a lot of responsibility, though. You are there to make sure the sheep don't wander off, and you are there to protect the sheep when that wolf cries in the distance. The job of the shepherd is both humble and demanding. It is a job that is at both times not very glamorous, but also very needed. It is a job that asks somebody to kind of put your own life on hold so that you can protect the vulnerable. Responsibility and protectiveness wrapped up in one person. Now imagine Jesus as the shepherd. I always get that image in my mind of a painting of Jesus holding a sheep on his shoulders with the hind legs in one hand and the front legs in the other hand, and carrying it on his shoulder. And I think if I was that sheep, I would be fighting so hard against somebody carrying me around. And how many times have I done that when Jesus has been coming into my life? How many times has Jesus come into my life trying to protect me and guide me and guard me, and I have thrashed about on his shoulders? The shepherd is put upon. Not just by society, but I imagine is probably put upon sometimes by the sheep, who may need the shepherd, who may depend on the shepherd, but who may struggle against that shepherd from time to time. I was talking with my grandfather last week, and he was telling me a story about when he and my grandmother were first dating, and one of his responsibilities as the boyfriend was to take the sheep to get sheared. So he had to guide the sheep into the back of his sedan and close it in the door and drive it to the shearer. I don't know that sheep like being shoved in the back of a car. But the role of shepherd is imposed, and sometimes when that role is imposed, you do it to the best of your ability. The sheep, though, doesn't always know what's best for it. The sheep sometimes struggles. The sheep sometimes wants to do anything but what the shepherd wants it to do. The shepherd still protects the flock. Doesn't hold it against the sheep for being obstinate, for being difficult, but recognizes that as the nature of the sheep. The shepherd is put upon, but is so vitally needed. So I said that this was a resurrection story, and I want to get into that a little bit. But first I want to tell a story of a pink sheep. Heather and I were in Iceland last year, and we were kind of on a little road, and along the side of the road there are colored sheep. Some of them have a red X on them, some of them have a blue circle on them, and one of them has pink lines running down its side. And so we asked somebody, why the heck are the sheep colored? Sheep, in my memory, don't usually come with paint on them. Well, that's because the sheep are allowed to roam wherever they want. And when it comes time to go collect your sheep, you need a way to remember which sheep was yours, because when they've been roaming around a lot, they all kind of start to look alike. So they paint their own unique design on their sheep. And I gotta hope those sheep don't have mirrors, because those are some unique designs sometimes. It gets me thinking, what about us? Are we marked in such a way as to know who we belong to? And are we marked in a way that might look kind of odd, kind of strange to an outsider? I think of how many people drive by this church every day and have no idea what's going on inside. And maybe if they found out, it might seem a little strange. You're telling me that you take that much time out of your week for this? You're telling me that sometimes you interrupt a good Sunday morning nap to come to church? You're telling me that you take some of your hard-earned money and send it to parts of this world that you cannot even name to help people you don't even know? That's kind of weird. You're telling me you put this much effort into something, and the reward is what exactly? Are we being marked in a way in this church so that we are known by God, so that we know that we belong to God, but at the same time, someone looking in might say, hey, that's a little weird. I hope so. I hope so, because the mark is not so important for God as I think it is for the rest of the world. God knows who we belong to. God knows that we belong to Him. But we need to make sure that we are marked so everybody else knows it too. Because the thief coming in the night is going to try to steal. Is going to try to take us from God. The peanut butter from the children's lesson I have been tempted by peanut butter many times in my life. I still am tempted by peanut butter a lot. But are we being marked in such a way so that the tempters out there, the people that try to tempt us away from the good work of this church, are we marked in such a way as to tell them plainly and clearly who we belong to? That we belong to Jesus Christ. We are His, and He is our shepherd. Are we marked in such a way that might look strange to an outside observer, but means so much to us? Are we marked by the outpouring of love that Jesus showed us? Are we marked by an unconditional grace? Are we marked by life lived in service to God? I hope this week as we go out into the world, you show off the mark of Christ in your life. Because so often the world is going to ask us to hide it away, to put that away, to don't let anybody know that you believe in Jesus Christ. But maybe this week, let's start showing that we believe. Let's start showing that we are marked for a different kind of life. Let us start showing that maybe we have not pink lines painted down our sides, but maybe we are marked in ways that are unique and special and blessed, that say who we belong to and who it is that we know is going to lead us home. Let's pray together. Lord, in the end of our days, I pray that we have lived a life that is reflecting of your glory. In the end of our days, I hope that we are standing with the multitude who have been marked and claimed as yours. This world will try to mark us, O God. It will try to claim us as its own, but it has no power over you. Lord, we come today saying that we are claimed by a greater power. We are claimed by the love of God. And I pray that that be the mark that we show the world. Amen.